So this is lecture 15 that we're busy with now, and it's part 3 of 6 of our advanced content creation. So what we'll be doing today is we will be continuing where we left off in the previous lesson, or the previous 2 lessons rather, and we'll look at the next phase today, and we're including something new called FUBI, which we'll also be looking at. So we're looking at pages 99 to 101 in Next Level Radio, and then page 215 also in Next Level Radio. So product life stages. We've gone through introduction. And the reason why we're going through the product life cycle is to try and keep the listeners engaged for as long as possible. By going through the phases and by seeing what is the most important in each of these phases for the listeners. From a commercial perspective, the longer you keep the listener engaged, the more advertising they will hear and the more effective the advertiser will be, which means a better return on investment, so a better ROI for the client. So at the end of the day, it's good for everyone if we can, it's good for everyone for us to use this formula to try and keep listeners for as long as possible. Because if there's no advertising, even if there's no advertising, this content is still considered paid for by the user. Because if I download a podcast, what did I say? I use my time and I use my data. So a disengaged user is obviously less likely to buy. A disengaged user is obviously less likely to buy another piece of content with their data and time because they didn't get anything out of the previous one. So why on earth would I invest in something again that isn't investing in me? And from a public broadcasting perspective, no value can be put on a piece of disengaging audio. Now we're at the next one, which is growth. You can see here, if you look at what happens, you can see how it grows over time. And then we still need to get to maturity and to the declining phase. So again, just to reiterate, this product or service life cycle makes the following 3 widely accepted assumptions. So the first is that products have a limited life cycle. The second is the success or sales of that product go through these 4 stages, and these all offer up different challenges and opportunities. And thirdly, in every phase, the business has to work on different strategies to ensure the success of the product. And radio is no different from this. So in every phase, the station managers, along with the program manager and obviously the presenters, need to work on the different strategies to ensure the success of the radio station, okay? So we go through all 4 phases. So we go through all 4 of these phases, and each requires different strategies and techniques to navigate. So where are we now? We are now in the growth phase. So our first 18 months of a new show. So the introduction phase was the first 18 months of the show. And that was like us going into a bar and seeing someone across the room, walking over, meeting them for the first time, where there were certain conversations that we just would not have with them because we don't know anything about them. We don't want to put ourselves in an embarrassing situation. We also don't want to push them away from us. So we mentioned that we would stay away from things like religion, like politics, like our sexual history or theirs, like controversial worldviews and our embarrassing topics, and rather focus on more generalized topics. Now the growth phase is the stage of the relationship where you've gotten to know each other, okay? So this is the phase where you fall in love and you begin to be more accepting of each other's flaws while still learning about each other. So you start to share more personal information and potentially more embarrassing stories because you're more comfortable with each other. So the same can now be said for a radio show's relationship with its listeners. A listener has probably heard enough of a presenter to know whether they either like them or dislike them and whether they will continue listening to the presenter or not. This is where your personal opinions begin to matter more. You start talking about more human interest topics and more relevant content pieces. If we look at our clock now, you'll see it shifted a little bit. So now if we look at the breakdown, our station and promotion is now on 20%. Our feature and benchmarks is on 30%. Lifestyles or relationships is on 25%. Personal observation is on 20%. And now we have a new one that came in, heart, okay? So this is quite a shift from previously where we had station and promotion and features and benchmarks, both on 35. We had lifestyle/relationship on 20, and we had personal observation on 10, and no heart. So we have a little bit of heart now. We have some more personal observation, and we have 5% extra lifestyle/relationship, and 10% less station and promotion, and 5% less features and benchmarks. Okay, so you can see that shift towards less just generalization and more towards feelings, more towards my opinions. So now when we're planning an hour of radio show in this growth phase, the structure looks a little bit different. So in our hour, if we look at the topic station and promotion, which is the information about what is happening on the station in your city, in South Africa, in the world, and what is happening on my show, that's only 20% that I'll spend talking about that now. If I look at our features or benchmarks, which the content is having entertaining, engaging, relevant, and relatable features or benchmark moments where listeners can play along, such as games, is 30% of the time because listeners love games. I love playing games. Okay, if we look at then at the topic of relationship content, our content there includes relationship. So if we look at relationship content and lifestyle content, which we combine, the content there, which includes relatable relationship discussions or stories, and stories or discussions about a common lifestyle, that's now 25%. Our personal observations, of which the content includes our own observations about relatable topics, is now 20% of the time. Heart, which is now our new one, the content there includes emotional, personal experiences and our opinions, which is 5% of the time. So now if we outline what we should plan to do in a show with 15 links, so our 3 hours, our station and promotions, where we only spend 20% of the time, will now have 3 links. Features and benchmarks, where we spend 30% of our time, will have 5 links. Relationship content and lifestyle content combined, which is 25%, will have 3 links. Personal observations, which is 20%, will have 3 links now, and heart will have 1 link. So that's our 15 links, which is 1 show. Okay, so now let's plan our clock around our growth phase. So the 2 previous clocks you did for me, the one was a breakfast clock, and then the last week's one was an introductory clock, and now we're doing the growth phase. Okay, so these I've left blank for a reason, because this is stuff I want you to fill in when you start prepping for the show. Okay, so this is where you will give me those content pieces, so what you will include in them. So according to our growth phase, there are 3 links that need to be worked in now, and one I'm suggesting, but you don't have to go with. So something needs to happen at 6:10, something needs to happen at 19 minutes to 7, and something needs to happen at 7:10. So where this is a little bit different from the previous tours, instead of 1, we will now have 3 clocks. So you will literally give me your show breakdown for this, okay? And then my suggestion, like I said, but you don't have to use it, is entertainment news before each spot break, which is 30 seconds. Then there are a few time-sensitive elements that you have to include in these 3 clocks, okay? So you have to include your news at the top of the hour, which will be 90 seconds. Your news headlines at the bottom of the hour, which is 30 seconds. Your sport at the bottom of the hour for 90 seconds. Sport headlines at the top of the hour for 30 seconds. Weather at the top and bottom of the hour for 30 seconds. And traffic at the top and bottom of the hour for 30 seconds. You can see this is not a breakfast show, right? This is not a morning clock that we're putting together here, a morning show clock. And then your spot breaks are at 22 minutes past, 38 minutes past, and 52 minutes past. So you will be doing it like this for all 3 hours, okay? So that's 180 seconds. So this is what I want you to do for your 3 hours, is include all of these. And then these are just the ones that I put in. For the rest, you can do what you want as long as it works according to the growth phase, okay? So our hot clock, as I called it, remember that there are only 2 types of links. Those that promise that you're about to do something provocative, so a throw forward, which can also be a teaser. And on the other side, those that form the provocative piece, so the actual content piece. So that's the 2 types of links. So now that we have these elements, okay, so you can see I'm helping you more and more with these. You can construct your clock. There are, however, a few rules that you need to remember. That is that you never play 2 songs back to back without identifying the station, so without playing a station imaging. Always link before the spots and throw forward to the song or content after the ads, okay? Remember, throw forward is not telling the listener what's coming up. It's telling them why they have to listen. Do you remember of the previous classes? We said we tell them why they need to listen. So we give them the why before we tell them the how, okay? So we sell them the content or the song to keep them listening for longer. So as you can see, all the classes are now starting to come together, okay, as one. So you always link before the spot. So you always link before ads and throw forward to whatever's coming after the ads, because we're telling them why they need to keep listening. And then always play imaging out of the spots into a song. And keep in mind the length of your talk time. So try to limit the length that you are talking. So again, just the examples of the clocks. So these will be a little bit, so these differ a little bit from what from the times that I gave you here. But again, it's just to show you and to get your mind into starting to build those clocks, okay? So our growth phase clock, these look different from the examples that I gave you, or not from the examples, from the times that I gave you, the time-sensitive elements, as well as the growth phase elements. Again, it's just to show you all the elements so that you can see how the breakdown will work when you start breaking down your clock. And again, the other example, okay? So thinking of all 3 of your hours, because like I mentioned, I want a whole show's clocks, né? A whole show's clocks. And a whole show equals 3 clocks, okay? So 3 breakdowns. And I want to see that you've included these elements, but these. So I want to see where you're putting your growth phase elements. So these. So in your 3 hours, I want to see where you put your station and promotion links. I want to see where those features and benchmark links are, the relationship and lifestyle content, the personal observations, and the heart. And I want to know what it is that you would speak about, okay? So don't just tell me that's going to be a features or a benchmark link. I want to know exactly what it is that you will be doing then, okay? And something to start thinking about. So far, we've built our radio show without the gift system, okay? What we're going to start doing now is incorporate the gift system. So what you're going to do when you build today's clocks for me for all 3, you're going to keep in mind both the gift system and the FUBI, which we'll get to now. The GIF system is used by Tracy Johnson to help set up the content profile of a radio show that gives the radio station the best chance to improve quickly. So that's everything that we're doing now at the moment, is just trying to give the radio show the best chance of success on the long run, and now we're trying to improve it quickly. So GIF stands for Games, Information, Funny, and Story, hence GIFs. GIFs is a system that radio presenters and producers can use to create and program their content so that their personalities stand out. If we start with G there for games, games is a big part of our lives. I told you earlier, I also like playing games when it's on the radio. Throughout our lives, we will continue to play games. From the basic elementary games when we were in school, to sport games as adults, to bingo if you're older, or even some students like playing bingo. Overall, however, games are a vital part of the fabric of entertainment in our society. So mirroring this on air is an essential part of any radio station's content mix. If I think about how many of you have told me that you enjoy the games that are played on the breakfast shows in the morning, it just shows that our society enjoy them. Radio shows should be designed in such a way that listeners can play along. So you should build in interactive elements that engage your audience. This could be actual games, such as whatever it might be, heads up, or it could be phone topics that include audience responses. However, gamifying does not always mean an interactive caller or listeners playing along with the show on the phone. It could be listeners, it could instead be listeners playing along in their car or from wherever they're listening. I'm one of those listeners who is never going to actually phone into the station, but I'll sit in my car and play along because I enjoy the questions and I enjoy I especially enjoy the Trivial Pursuit kind of games or the music games. So people like me who enjoy listening and playing from the car, but who won't phone in, are called passive active callers, or are called passive active listeners. So the passive in the sense that they're not on the line talking to the presenter, but active in the sense that they're playing along from wherever they are. Okay, so that's games in essence. So the idea is to work games into your show. The next one is information. This is a very broad category that can include news, weather, traffic, and sports. Or it could even be events that are happening within the community, or an entertainment report. So I mentioned earlier that something that you might work in is an entertainment news. So that would feature as, so this I for information, this would count as that. Or it could be a style and a fashion update. Here you could include a daily feature, so commentary on the news or once-off conversation regarding something in the news. We should think of this category as a demonstration to the listener that you're in touch with what's happening in the world. So this is where you show that you know just what's going on around you. If we look at the next one, then it's F for funny, okay? Nothing beats funny on air. You can say what you want, but nothing beats funny on air. If you can make listeners laugh, you own them. But you have to be truly funny, or at least create funny situations. So this can't be overemphasized. It's critical, okay? You have to truly be funny or truly be able to create funny situations. The best way for me to describe this is think about people in your life, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, people you might have dated. If someone is truly funny, we are drawn to them, and they're way more likable. They're extremely likable personalities. A lot of people would date someone purely because they were funny, not because they were good looking, because we're super attracted to that personality, to that humor. Okay, it's just as important on air. If you're truly funny, you can own someone. Okay? And then the last one there is S for story. I know I hammer on storytelling a lot, but storytelling is so important. It's one of the most important things. If you want to be an on-air presenter, you need to be able to know how to tell a story. This is probably the most crucial part for a radio presenter. The audience can get involved with a show by following a story as it unfolds. If it's a relationship feature, these are hugely successful because they are content containers for great stories. There's a reason there's so many real life relationship stories on TV also, because it's something people can follow and they can invest in. Along with making people laugh, learning to tell stories is a critical skill for every personality. As I've mentioned time and time again, not everyone is a great storyteller, but you can learn to be a much better storyteller by studying it. Okay, practice. That's all you do. You just keep practicing. If we look at how we would apply GIFs. To program the GIF system, Johnson recommends that you start by deciding what percentages each of the 4 categories should represent on your show. A few shows will be a strict 25% for each category. Maybe you're a 50% funny, 30% story, 10% information and games. So find your ideal formula to create features and to hold GIFs. A simple example for your 3-hour breakdown would be something like in your first hour doing a game like a pop quiz, having an information section where you chat about the news from the streets of Johannesburg, having something funny, and an example there would be Darren Simpson's or Wackade Simpson's phone pranks. And perhaps you would work in a story, so storytelling about, I don't know, one of your presenters learning to drive an 18-wheeler to deliver water to the drought-stricken Western Cape, okay? Your second hour could then be your game, so a phoner of the day. Your information could be a Mzansi showbiz report. Your funny for the day could be an Ask Mel feature. And your story for the day could be your love letters, which you read out on air. And in your third hour, it could be, your game could be 30 seconds, so a radio version of 30 seconds. Your information could be a Hollywood showbiz report. Your funny could be another phone prank. And your story could be story time with Brad, so just someone telling a story. What I want you to think about once again is just to explain in your own words why it is important for a podcast or a radio show to strive for information and entertaining content. Okay, I know it was part of your homework in the previous class. I just want to see if you can still remember that. And then question 2, there is name the 4 product stages of the life cycle of a radio show. And for each stage, explain how the stage impacts the creation of content for the show. So now we've done 2. So you should be able to do the introduction phase and the growth phase by now. And number 3 there is explain what a link is. You should know what a link is. It's something I explained. And you don't know the second part yet of that question, but the first part, explain what a link is, we have gone through, so you should know what a link is by now. If we look at Fubby, or in this case, it's still called Fuby. This is the Fuby wheel, okay? And it breaks these 4 types of content into smaller subcategories. So our 4 types of content here is funny, useful, beautiful, and inspiring. So what we've done now, we've broken it down. So under funny, We have parody, slapstick, satire, potty, and black. Under useful, we have consumer reviews, social good, news and analysis, news updates, and wonder. Under inspiring, we have ideas, spiritual, weird, biographical, and heartwarming. And under beautiful, we have sensual, pop, extravagant, minimalist, and cute. Looking at this from an audio creation or radio perspective, Fubi can now be translated into Fabi with an extra B. That extra B stands for bold, meaning the content presented must challenge what has been traditionally aired on radio by being courageous and daring. This can mean developing new ideas or taking a fresh approach on old ideas, such as hosting a very different type of interview, or whatever it is, as long as it's something that's new and fresh, or as long as it's a different way of doing it. Every piece of content that is created needs to follow this Fabi approach. Okay, so every piece of content needs to be fun, useful, bold, beautiful, and inspiring. If your content satisfies the Fabi standards, it is more likely to emotionally connect with listeners. So there's quite a lot, again, that we're taking into consideration from all factors. What I want you to do now is to identify the elements in all three of these show links. So I have played the 3 show links for you before. But now what you're going to do is you're going to identify the show links, the elements of the show links using Fabi and the GIFs method, where you'll identify the personality bits, the time, the show prep, and the examples of the host's own life, okay? So the 3 clips there are from Kaya, from Metro, and from East Coast Radio. So this is then, so this you can see as the first part of your homework, because I want to see that you've actually applied Fabi and GIFs. It's very important. Fabi and GIFs form some of the most important sections of this content piece or of this content module that we're doing right now. Okay, so you need to understand all these elements in detail. You need to understand the growth, like you need to understand the 4 phases in detail. So far the growth and so far the introduction and the growth phases, and Fabi and GIFs, okay? So for homework, and this should not be difficult because we've given you 80% of the elements, and we've told you what to include in the other 20% in any case. So create a music format clock for me, so a hot clock, a 3-hour show, okay? Using all the parameters of this class, including the growth phase, but not limited to. Okay, so let's go back. So you're going to now incorporate in your 3 hours. So in your three clocks, these. So you're going to have your station and promotion 3 links, your features and benchmark 5 links, your relationship content or lifestyle content 3 links, your personal observations 3 links, and your heart 1 link. Okay. Here I've given you the time sensitive elements for your clock, showed you the types of content or the types of links, gave you a few rules, gave you 2 examples of clocks, and then given you a lot of extra information with GIFs, so games, information, funny, and story. And then with Fabi, which is fun, useful, bold, beautiful, and inspiring. And that brings us to the end of this lecture. I hope your mind isn't exploding yet and that you're still with me. You'll see with repetition, all these things are going to stick in your mind, and you're going to have all the tools necessary to make you a great on-air personality, if that's where you want to go, or to make you a great content producer, or just an overall great producer, because you'll understand exactly everything that should go into a great show, okay? And with that, I say goodbye until our next class, where we will do part 4 of 6 of the information and entertainment content. So remember all your homework, because we'll be going through it again, as I mentioned before, in the live classes. Bye.